Hey, what I'm going to ask you to do is remember I'm going to help you out with each chapter or each section that we're discussing in class or online. That way it can feel like that you're listening to some sort of lectured presentation and you don't feel like you're doing this all on your own. So if you are new to this, pull out your PowerPoint that's available on my Canvas site or your Canvas site that's going in sequential to, we're on chapter 6. Which is bones and skeletal tissue. So pull it out and I'll be talking to you and you can be looking at your slides as I'm talking. Go right along and it'll be a great learning process for you. Okay, we want to talk about skeletal cartilage. There's a variety, there's different kinds, and they're all specific to what their jobs are within our body. So there are some that have to be more elastic, hence the name elastic, some that have to be stronger with a greater support of collagen. It's just depending on what their job is within our body. Okay, let's go through the few of them that you're required to know and that are found in our body. The first one is hyaline cartilage. You'll see in the hyaline cartilage, you should have seen this already in the tissues that you've looked at for lab. The hyaline cartilage looks like there are little eyeballs, quote unquote, found within the tissue. They're spherical chondrocytes, actually, is what they are. It's full of a matrix, so it's not just chondrocytes. There's a matrix in between each of these chondrocytes and actually is supporting the chondrocytes. Okay, it's made of fine collagen fibers, so there is strength to it, but it's not as strong as other collagen fiber that is found elsewhere because it's made thin. Okay, it's at the end of most bones. It's connecting ribs. It's found in the respiratory system or the larynx specifically, and it's part of your external nose. Okay, so yeah, the easiest one I can talk about is the nose. There is strength to this because y'all do this and do this all the time. And if there was no strength or structure to this, it would change shape. It would break very easily. Okay? It just would not have that move. It does have motion to it, but it goes right back to the correct place that it was at. And it can only go so far. Right? If you go further than that, obviously you'll damage it. Okay? Elastic cartilage is the next. Okay? The name gives it away. It's more elastic and bendable. It's found in two places. Okay? It's found in the external ear and your epiglottis. Obviously, external ear, okay, it's going to move very much right back onto itself. The epiglottis, does a lot of things. Every time you swallow, ingest, anything like that, it has to be able to motion and move. Okay. Fibrocartilage is the third cartilage. It has great tensile strength. It is made up of two rows that run parallel, made of chondrocytes and collagen fibers. So it'll be a chondrocyte row, collagen fiber, chondrocyte, collagen fiber. That's what gives it its great strength. Okay? It's found in an area where pressure and stretch are required and have to be successful. Your knee, your intervertebral disc. These areas endure tons of pressure and motion and have to be able to respond without breaking. The last cartilage is growth cartilage. Okay? It grows in two ways. It's appositional, which means it's found outside. It's in the pericardium where the matrix is being formed and secreted. And then it's also considered interstitial or inside. The chondrocytes that I keep speaking about, well, they're found in this area that's called lacunae. It's almost like a lagoon. And that's where they're secreting new matrix. So it's occurring there as well. What does this offer you? Faster. If it's being excreted on the outside and at the inside, it's speeding up the time almost 100%. Okay? We have 206 bones in our body. Of course, we're scientists, so we're going to classify the bones by first where they're located. Okay? They're either found in the axial portion, which is the upper portion of the body. That's the skull, the vertebra, ribs, and coccyx. And then any other bone that falls in another place other than the axial portion, that's called appendicular. Okay. The other way we classify these 206 bones is by their shape. Easiest one to talk about is long bones. Okay, that means they're longer in length than width. Okay, the femur, the longest bone in the body. Okay, that's a long bone. It has to have a shaft with two ends on it. All limbs are made up of long bones except for wrist and ankles. Those are many small ones. Okay. The second grouping is called short bones. The short bones are considered cube-shaped. Okay, those are your wrists and ankles. Flat bones, they're going to be thin, flattened, and they may have a slight curve to them. Good example is the sternum. And irregular bones, those are considered to have quote-unquote weird shapes. They're undefinable. And vertebra and hip bones. Okay, are for both. All bones have 7 functions. Okay. Support means that they're providing the framework for your body. They're to provide protection. The best example is going to be the skull for your brain. They're to provide movement, muscles attached to bone by tendons, and it works in a lever pulley system for motion. All bones are supposed to have mineral and growth factor storage. Greatest example is going to be calcium and phosphorus. It's a deposit withdrawal system or a negative feedback system, ensuring that it's regulated properly. Bones are also have the ability for blood cell formation, otherwise called hematopoiesis. Bones are supposed to have triglyceride and fat storage. Yellow bone marrow, greatest source of fat. And lastly, they're supposed to have hormone production. Osteocalcin is produced here, and that's a regulator of bone formation. Okay. Because of their bone structure, they're going to be typecasted in 3 different ways. It's basically levels of size, so it's gross, microscopic, and also chemical level of organization for them. Okay, so let's start on gross. Okay, so we're talking about stuff. If I'm holding the skull, which you should have with you right now, you're holding the gross structure of the skull. Okay, so the skull for gross. The outer layer or the outside of the skull, you can feel it. It feels smooth. It feels solid. That's made of compact bone. Okay. Internal to this, which if you look on the presentation, you can see that on the slide it looks like a sponge area. This is called spongy bone for that purpose. It does look like a sponge. It shapes, the also format is considered honeycomb, is what it looks like. Within this spongy bone, if I were to dissect each little piece of what makes up the spongy bone, they are called trabeculae. If you have a formation, now think about it, the outside is smooth and compact, the middle is spongy bone, and the very inside of the skull is smooth and compact bone. It makes this bone sandwich. It's called, now we change the name. We changed the name of the spongy bone to dipole. It's not called spongy anymore. That's our way to differentiate. Is this coming from that bone sandwich that I just described, or is it coming from just a compact bone, spongy bone scenario? So be careful on the test and when answering questions for that trick. Okay? Long bones, okay? They're all going to have a shaft, which is better known as, in the proper terminology, is diaphysis. It's the long axis of the bone. It surrounds a medullary cavity. And in adults, you're going to find yellow marrow in this cavity. The two ends have a name as well. They're called epiphysis. Okay? The outer layer or outer shell of the epiphysis is going to be spongy bone. And between the epiphysis and the diaphysis, where they two merge, is where you're going to find the epiphyseal plate. That's hyaline cartilage, allowing us to see if the person is still growing or have they stopped growing. So it's a great marker for radiologists. Okay? So now that we've got the general shape of it, there has to be membranes, okay, that are going to surround it for protection. The periosteum is the name of the double-layered external surface membrane, okay? Okay. It does not cover joints. The outer is very fibrous and irregular connective tissue, and the inner contains stem cells that are called osteogenic cells. The inner is also going to have the nerve fibers and blood flow. And you've seen the external surface if you've ever hunted or cleaned something after you killed it to ingest it. When you go to pull away the muscle from any of the bones, you can, especially the leg, you can feel the difficulty as you're pulling it away, and you'll see a very fibrous tissue that's helping to attach it to the bone. That's what I'm talking about for the fibrous irregular connective tissue. The periosteum is going to be secured to the bone by something called Sharpie's fibers. Those are collagen fibers. Those are extremely strong, very hard to pull away. Look at the picture and you'll see what I'm talking about. They're trying to pull it away. It's very difficult. Okay. What I got? The hematopoietic tissue for bone is going to be located in the red bone marrow, found within the dipole of the bone. Okay. Let's talk about the cells of the bone. There's 5 types. We're going to talk about the 4 bone lining cells. First one is osteogenic stem cell. It's found in the periosteum and endosteum. It's mitotically very, very active. When it's stimulated, these cells are going to differentiate into one of the 3 other cells. So it'll find a job to do within your bone. Okay? So it's a stem cell. So just like any other stem cells in our body, it can differentiate once it's turned on into what it needs to be for your body. The first of those other cells is going to be an osteoblast. They secrete bone matrix. They're actively mitotic, and their secretions are going to include collagen, calcium, and binding proteins to help make the bone. These are the cells you want when you've broken a bone to start making it correct. Okay? Osteocytes, okay? They're mature bone cells. They're going to occupy the lacunae found in your bone, and they maintain and watch the bone matrix to make sure everything looks okay. There's no dead cells in there that needs to be reabsorbed. And the last one is the osteoclast. Okay? Those are going to be the opposite as an osteoblast. They're going to eat bone. They're going to break down bone. Okay? They're almost like a macrophage that breaks down things that need to be cleaned up. Okay? Where bone needs to be reabsorbed, this is a cell doing that job. The other thing that I wanted to tell you that about markings that you see on a bone, a marking is a bump, a ridge, a split. Any of those things are markings. Markings are very important for areas to allow like attachment to occur. Some smooth bone is very difficult for attachment to occur, and it may not stay as well. Okay? Review compact bone. What are the parts of the compact bone? Okay? You can see that the bone structure itself is called an osteon. That's the circular structure that looks almost like a tree when you cut it down. It's going to have different canals. All canals are there for purposes of allowing nerves or blood vessels to come through to the main circle of that osteon. Okay, so you're really bathing the bone with nerve and blood vessels. Just think, if you break a bone, it hurts and you bleed. Okay, so it's really important to know that. Formation of a bony skeleton. All but the clavicle are going to be formed by endochondral ossification. It's going to begin late in the second month in gestation, and what it is hyaline cartilage that we've talked about. That's part of the epiphyseal plate. Lays down like an outwork, like a map of where all the bones are supposed to be in their general shape. And what happens is this ossification comes in and turns it into hardened bone. Okay? So at week 9, the steps are you get a bone collar. So around this hyaline cartilage shape, this rough shape of a bone, you get a collar or a almost full circle of bone surrounding it around the center of it, or what would be the shaft. Okay? This doesn't occur yet at the epiphysis, so it's only at the diaphysis. Then cartilage is going to be made in the center of the diaphysis, and then you're going to have chondrocytes coming in, causing the calcification of cartilage when those chondrocytes die. So they're coming in the area. Remember, chondrocytes lay matrix. They only have a certain lifespan. Once they finish laying the matrix, they die, they become hard or calcify, and now we've got cartilage. Okay? This allows for cavities. like down the shaft, that main medullary cavity, it's open. And when it's open, it allows for blood vessels to come through. That's called the periosteal bud. That's what sets up the first and original blood vessels that come through. Okay? Again, it's going to continue calcifying all over. It enlarges. Okay? Anything that is made that cannot allow for the main cavity, okay? What's the name of the cell that breaks down bone? Right, osteoclasts come in and break down the area so you continue to have that main cavity. And then it's just built on top of one another until you have the main bone. Again, then you have that epiphyseal plate that's going to be in between the epiphysis and diaphysis, and that's just an area that hasn't calcified. Okay? Now for cranial bones and clavicles, it's different. It's done through intramembranous ossification. You have a specific cell, they're called mesenchymal cells, and what they do is they go into the area, they cluster, and become osteoblasts. Osteoblasts lay matrix, okay? Once they've now clustered, they've become osteoblasts, it is now known as the ossification center. This is what's going to produce the first trabeculae of the spongy bone. So in this area, they now form a circle. Within this circle, they're going to produce something called osteoid. Osteoid is a matrix that's going to be laid down and within a few days becomes very hard. Okay? Any of the osteoblasts that happen to get stuck in it become osteocytes. This calcified osteoid continues to make a network of trabeculae, making the spongy bone, allowing for blood and nerve vessels to come in through these caverns, and now it looks like spongy bone stacked on spongy bone and continues to grow. All right. Bone growth, bone remodeling, it shows the growth. Bone grows this way. Bone remodeling means you're old, you have no more hyaline cartilage centers to grow from, so it grows on the outside of it. Okay, that's just something that's talked about in the book. Constant balance through negative feedback by the parathyroid hormone and osteoclasts. What do osteoclasts do? They break down bone, so then parathyroid must cause for bone to be built up. So it's a constant balance to ensure that the calcium is correct in your body. If it's not, you can be osteogenic in some way. Stress. The book goes on to talk about different fractures. Look at the ones that are there. They're in the book. I wish you were here so we could go through it and you can ask some questions about it. Very common. The other thing that's important is, how do bones repair themselves? There has to be 4 events for you to repair a bone fracture in some way. Okay? When you bust a bone, I told you there's blood vessels in there. So the first event is when you break that bone, cause a hematoma. Okay? There's swelling. You may be jeopardizing blood flow to parts of your body, including, and most importantly, that bone that you've fractured. okay? And there's pain. So that's all occurring in the first step. The second step, within about 3 days, capillaries are going to now grow into the hematoma. You're going to have phagocytic action come into the area and eat, quote unquote, or dissolve all the things that need to be dissolved, so they're cleaning the area up. Fibroblasts, cartilage, and osteogenic cells go to the fracture site to begin reconstruction of bone, which I taught you how it's done, okay, with the hyaline cartilage model when you were babies. Same idea, it goes in and now fixes it the same way as it did when you were being made, okay? You've got chondroblasts in there making cartilage, and you've got fibroblasts making collagen fibers to ensure there's some sort of strength. Okay. The third step is in within about 7 days. Within that callus that you made in step 2, okay, you're going to now see trabeculae starting to appear. It's now becoming a bony callus of spongy bone. It takes about 2 months to finish. Initially, obviously, it's very weak. So if you were to take the cast off and go, within some point of step 3 in the beginning stages of it, that area of the bone will be easier to break than ever before, right? Step 4 is called bony callus formation. This really takes several months. Most people are out from 7 to 9 weeks. And when all actuality, yeah, you're pretty good to go, but they could have it on technically for 4 to 5 months. Okay? This should be your final structure. And then I talked about disabilities and disorders, osteoporosis, rickets, osteomalacia. They're all related to that balance, that negative feedback system that you're supposed to have going at a good way, not working effectively, and the osteoclasts are working way too well, and the osteoblasts cannot keep up. Okay. I hope it helped a little bit. I hope you're all doing well. Keep up the work. It'll get easier, maybe.